아마도 바울이 고린도전서에서 성전을 언급했을 때 예루살렘을 염두에 두었을 수도 있지만 바울이 사실은 약간 다른 의도를 가지고 있었다라는 것도 유추할 수 있는 부분이 있거든요. 왜냐하면 제가 여기서 더 길게 말씀드리긴 어렵지만 바울 같은 경우 전 바울이 교회 중에 모델 중에 하나를 조합에서 발견하고자 합니다. 바울이 어떻게 보면 선교의 중요한 플랫폼 중에 하나가 고대의 직업조합, 수공업조합이었을 것이라고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 바울이 선교지에서 첫 번째로 회당에 갔겠죠. 근데 또 이방인 성도들 만나기 위해서 어디로 갔을까라고 생각한다면 자신이 수공업자였기 때문에 수공업자로서 조합을 참석을 했을 것입니다. 근데 고대의 조합은 현대의 조합과 좀 다른 모습을 가지고 있었습니다. 왜냐하면 종교적인 성격을 가지고 있거든요. 각자의 각 그 조합들은 수호신들을 모시고 있었습니다. 예를 들어서 고대의 델로스 섬의 상인 조합은 헤라클레스 신을 섬기는 제2조합이기도 했습니다. 베이루트의 선적 처리업자들의 직업 조합은 포세이돈 제2조합이었습니다. 그렇다면 바울의 선교 방식은 고린도 수공업자 조합의 수호신을 이방신에서 한 분 하나님으로 바꾸는 방식에 따라서 이루어졌을 것 같습니다. 그렇다면 이러한 상황 속에서 바울이 자신이 선교한 고린도 그리스도인들의 공동체를 그들이 이전에 익숙했던 이방 신정과 관련된 경험과 구분된 방식으로 그들이 정체성을 새롭게 구성했을 수 있었을 것이다라고 저는 생각합니다. 예를 들어서 고린도전서 9장 13절에서 성전의 일을 하는 이들은 성전에서 나는 것을 먹으며 제단에 섬기는 이들이 제단과 함께 나는 것을 알지 못하느냐 이렇게 얘기를 하는데 바울이 여기서 말하는 예루살렘 제사장을 지금 염두에 두고 말하고 있을 것인가? 거의 모든 해석자들은 그렇게 생각을 합니다만, 제 문제의식은 이것입니다. 예루살렘 성전에 대해서 거의 알지 못했던 고린도의 그리스도인들에게 예루살렘 성전의 제사장들을 예로 드는 것이 쉽게 이해가 되지 않을 수도 있다. 왜냐하면 제가 약간, 여러분들께 보내드린 핸드아웃에 몇몇 비문 자료들을 제가 보내드렸는데, 어, 그 비문 자료에서 신전에 신전에서 일을 하고 있는 사람들이 신전에서 나는 것을 먹고 재단에서 섬기는 이들이 재단과 함께 나누는 어떤 그런 관습을 나타내는 모습들을 나타내는 몇몇 비문들을 제가 제 핸드아웃 3페이지에서 여러분들에게 보내드렸습니다. 그렇다면 바울이 신전 제사장들을 언급하는 이유는 예루살렘 성전과 교회의 모습을 연결하려는 어떤 그러한 것이라기보다는 신전의 조합의 관습과 구분된 그리스도의 공동체의 새로운 모습을 나타내기 위해서 바울이 고린도 교인들에게 익숙했던 신전 제2조합의 관습을 언급하는 것일 수도 있다라고 저는 생각합니다. 신전 제2조합에서 사역자들, 제사장들은 자기 몫을 제물로부터 취하는 것이 당연했을 것입니다. 그렇다면 바울은 이러한 신전 제2조합의 신전의 관습을 따르지 않고 이런 관습을 거절함으로써 자신이 기독교 공동체가 기존의 제2조합 혹은 기존의 신전과 다르다라는 것을 표방하는 것이 아닌가라는 그런 생각이 듭니다. 그렇다면 저는 바울의 고린도전서에서의 성전 언어를 꼭 유대 성전을 지칭하는 것일 수도 있지만 어떤 측면에서 이방 신전이 오버랩되어 있을 수도 있다라는 점을 염두에 두어야 한다고 생각합니다. 바울은 한편으로는 유대적이지만 한편으로는 이방 문화에 익숙했고 그리고 이방 문화에 익숙한 이방인 그리스도인들에게 선교를 하기 위해서 그들이 익숙한 문화와 공동체의 형태를 따라서 그리스도인의 공동체를 새로운 신전이라고 말할 수 있었을 것이라고 생각합니다. 그래서 다시 말해서 저는 바울이 고린도 전서에 사용하는 성전 언어는 예루살렘 성전을 대체하는 공동체 혹은 장소로서 교회를 말하는 것이 아니다. 오히려 고린도 이방인 그리스도인들이 그들이 이전 신전과 관련된 정체성, 관습, 삶의 형태를 구분하는 차원에서 성전 언어를 사용하고 있는 것이다. 라고 저는 말씀드립니다. 네, 제가 부분 정도 말씀을 드렸는데요. 사실 좀 더 훨씬 더 긴 설명이 필요한 내용이지만 시간 관계상 여기까지만 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 저는 우리가 행했던 대체 신학적인 어떤 그런 측면들이 대체 신학적인 해석들이 2세기에 더욱 구체적으로 발전된 반유대주의적인 어떤 대체 신학적인 해석처럼 할 때가 있는 것 같습니다. 저는 보다 더 신약 성경을 1세기적인 정황 속에서 해석한다면 반유대주의적인 어떤 그런 성경 해석을 극복할 수 있는 어떤 단초를 우리가 발견할 수 있는 것이 아닌가라는 그러한 생각을 해보게 됩니다. 들어주셔서 감사합니다. 그렇다면 제가 여러분들과 함께 기조 강연을 마치고 이제 여러분들과 함께 어, 이제 본격적으로 세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 여러분들에게 말씀드린 것처럼 이중언어로 이 세션을 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 이 세션은 먼저 영어로 말씀드리고 그리고 한국어로 영어 한국어 순서로 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. Okay, welcome everyone to our colloquium. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to open this session. Before we begin our presentation, we have the honor of hearing welcoming remarks from Dr. Daniel Reinhold, Dean of the Bernard Lebel Graduate School at Yeshiva University. Dr. Daniel Reinhold is here. So would you please welcome Dr. Daniel Reinhold? Dr. Reinhold, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim. Good evening, everybody. Everybody can hear me okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Okay. So yeah, it's a great pleasure to be with you and to be able to say just a few words before we hear from Dr. Kim and Dr. Angel. So I'm Daniel Reinhold. I'm Dean of the Bernard Revel Graduate School here at Yeshiva University. About 3 years ago, in the summer of 2021, we at Bernard Revel were proud to count among our doctoral students a new graduate, Dr. Jong-Mun Hyo. A year later, in 2022, thanks to Dr. Hyo's vision, we were discussing creating a program at Revel in Jewish Studies for South Korean Christians. And then in 2023, Brill Academic Publishers brought out a book by Dr. Hyo called Images of Torah, which I imagine was probably the first serious English language scholarly work in Jewish studies written by, published by Brill, by a South Korean scholar. And here we are now, poised to admit our first cohort of South Korean students to Revel's new Advanced Certificate of Jewish Studies, which just was approved by New York State. So in less than 3 years, a story that sounds unlikely, even fictional, has become a reality. The partnership between Bernard Revel Graduate School and the South Korean community has brought us to a point where we can come together for a scholarly symposium such as this. And one of my teachers and mentors, the late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, used to recount a story that Elie Wiesel, a famous survivor of the Holocaust and a writer on the Holocaust, and Elie Wiesel used to recount this story to him. And he used to speak of a time when Theodor Herzl, the founder of political Zionism, without whom there wouldn't be a state of Israel today. Herzl was from Vienna and was in the same district as another modern Jewish pioneer from a different area of modern life, Sigmund Freud. And Elie Wiesel said to Rabbi Sachs, at least Herzl and Freud never met. For had they met, Herzl would have said, I have a dream of a Jewish state. And Freud would have replied, tell me, Mr. Herzl, how long have you been having this dream? Lie down on my couch and I will psychoanalyze you. And today there would be no state of Israel. We, the Jewish people, we follow Herzl rather than Freud. We maintain our dreams and we're willing to put in the hard work to make them a reality. And here we are today with a faculty member in Dr. Hyo teaching a Jewish studies course in Korean at Revel and coming together with you, our fellow dreamers, to explore Jewish studies together. Friendship and collaboration between communities dedicated to building something they value has never been so important. especially speaking for myself and Dr. Dauber here today and Dr. Angel, as Jews seeing an unprecedented rise in anti-Semitism in the United States. And that makes events like this and your partnership today all the more significant. So I just want to thank you for your collaboration, for studying with us. And I hope this will be just the beginning of a partnership where together we can build towards a future where different religions and different cultures can join together in study, friendship, and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Daniel Reinhold. Korean scholars have a great interest in Jewish-Christian dialogue. I hope this meeting will continue to be a platform for meaningful Jewish-Christian dialogue. Thank you very much. And let me summarize what you just delivered and translated into Korean for Korean people. 제가 그 라인홀드 학장님께서 말씀 주신 것을 좀 한국어로 좀 요약해서 전달해 드리도록 하겠습니다. 소개해 드린 것처럼 라인홀드 학장님께서는 예시바 대학교의 버나드 레벨 대학원의 학장님이십니다. 먼저 허정문 박사님에 대해서 소개를 해주셨는데요. 허정문 박사님이 2021년에 예시바 대학교에서 박사학위를 받으셨고, 아까 혹시 중간에 조나탄 더버 교수님께서 이렇게 책을 흔들어 주셨는데요. 혹시 보신 분이 계셨을 것 같습니다. 2023년도에 허정문 박사님의 박사학위 논문이 브릴 출판사에서 출간이 되는데, 라인홀드 교수님께서 말씀 주셨던 것이 이 책이 브릴이 출판한 한국인 학자가 쓴 유대교 연구 분야의 첫 번째로 진지한 영어 학술 저서다라고 말씀 주셨습니다. 그리고 예시바 대학교에서 유대교 연구를 위한 이렇게 어드밴스드 서티피케이트 과정을 지금 운영하고 있고 한국인 학생들을 입학시킬 준비를 하고 있다라고 말씀을 주셨습니다. 그런데 이러한 준비가 3년이 되지 않아서 실현이 되고 있다라고 말씀 주셨습니다. 그래서 꿈 얘기를 해주셨어요. 뭐라고 말씀을 주셨냐면 이렇게 그 유명한 랍비 중에서 조나단 삭스라는 분이 있거든요. 그분이 헤이즐이랑 프로이트가 혹시 만났다면 어땠을까라는 그런 얘기를 해주셨습니다. 헤이즐과 프로이트가 만난 적은 없지만 헤이즐이 제가 유대 국가에 대한 꿈을 꾸고 있다라고 프로이트한테 말했다면 프로이트가 당신은 꿈을 꾸셨군요. 누워보세요. 제가 당신에게 심리 분석을 해드리겠습니다. 이렇게 말을 했을 것이다. 그래서 프로이트는 꿈을 분석했지만 우리는 그 유대인들이 프로이트보다는 헤이츠를 따랐다. 꿈을 분석하는 것보다 꿈을 간직하고 꿈을 현실로 만들기 위해서 노력한 것이 헤이츠이었다라고 말하면서 지금 우리가 이 자리에 모인 것이 유대학 과정을 한국어로 가르치기 위해서 꿈꾸는 사람들이 함께한 모임이다라고 말했습니다. 그래서 함께 협력하고 또 함께 공부하는 분위기가 있었으면 좋겠다. 왜냐하면 현재 미국에서 반유대주의가 전례 없이 증가하고 있기 때문에 이런 행사를 통해서 우리들과 협력이 중요하다고 생각한다라고 닥터 라이놀드께서 말씀을 주셨습니다. 네, 다시 한번 감사드립니다. Thank you again, Dr. Reinhold. And let's get started with our presentation. Our first speaker is Dr. 주헌 김. 그럼 우리가 발제를 듣는 시간을 가지도록 하겠습니다. 우리의 발제자는 김주헌 박사님입니다. Let me briefly introduce Dr. 주헌 김. He earned his PhD from University of Aberdeen, Scotland, and he was a lecturer at Cheongsin Theological Seminary. Now he's teaching the New Testament at Asian Center for Theological Studies and Mission, also known as X University. 제가 김주헌 박사님을 간략하게 소개해드리면 아버딘 대학교에서 박사학위를 받으셨습니다. 그리고 총신 대학교 신학대학원에서 강사를 역임했고 현재 아신대학교에서 신약 성경을 강의하고 있습니다. He will present a paper entitled The Son of Man seated on the judgmental throne. 심판의 보좌에 앉은 인자라는 제목으로 페이퍼를 발제해 주시겠습니다. You have 20 minutes for presentation, Dr. Kim. Would you join me in welcoming Dr. Kim? 20분 동안 발제해 주시면 되시겠습니다. 우리 김주원 박사님 따뜻하게 환영해 주시기를 소망합니다.
네. 그럼 발표를 바로 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 화면을 보이시는지 다들 확인해 주시면 좋겠습니다. Let me introduce directly to put my presentation on the paper, please. Can you focusing on the screen if you have possible to do so? Now I'm begin now. Recently, incorporating the tradition of anarchic Son of Man into the canonical Gospels has garnered more scholarly attention. A well-established proposal has been presented within academic work on the relationship between these two bodies of literature. However, this line of thought did not appear suddenly, but has its historical lineage. Nevertheless, the extent to which the Synoptic Gospels and John's Gospel utilize this tradition remains a contentious subject to scholarly inquiry. Some publications posit a partial motif overlap analysis of the relationship between Enoch and the canonical Gospels. Just skip to this slide, please. And therefore, the question of how the judgment motive and the glorious status of the Son of Man seated on the throne in the parables of Enoch compared to those in the canonical Gospels need to be addressed as conceptual motive that spans from Enochic literature to the canonical Gospels. This comparison aimed to reveal the developmental process of understanding Jesus in early Christian perception. By doing so, this paper aims to address the thesis of exploring the incorporation of Enochic tradition into the canonical Gospels and understanding the cultural and textual connections between the canonical Gospels and the Second Temple Judaism literature, specifically the parables of Enoch. The paper aims to offer insight into the early Christians' reinterpretation of the Enochic Son of Man as the Jesus, and the reinterpretation stemmed from their encounters with the Jesus and subsequent reflections from the post-resurrection experiences, wherein the identification of Jesus as a Son of Man was perceived as a fulfillment of prophecies spanning from the Hebrew Bible to Second Temple literature in early Christian exegesis. To begin this process, the paper will first define the Enochic tradition during the Second Temple period, specifically focusing on the motive of the throne of glory and eschatological judgment. Observations on the Enochic Son of Man tradition in the similitude. In this investigation, the emphasis on focusing on the Son of Man should be considered. Explicit examples of portraying the Son of Man on the glorious throne can be found in 1 Enoch 55:4, 61:8-9, 62:2-3, 5, and 69:27 and 29. These examples suggest the defined implication that this throne belongs to God and that sitting on the throne of glory signifies sharing God's own throne. This point serves as a foundation for an extensive scholarly debate, forming the basis of the textual selection in this paper. Specifically, the scholar Daryl Hannah proposed that a glorious throne can be the one that God sits on for the following reasons. And you can see the following documents, but I will skip that part. So accordingly, it is clear that Son of Man's figure occupies a divine throne and executes eschatological judgment at his behest of the laws of the spirits. The first paragraphs for the first Enoch 55:4. You can see the verse in the screen here. And in these verses, the elect one is clearly portrayed as sitting on the throne of glory and judging Azazel and all his associates and hosts with the authority granted by the Lord of the Spirits. The motive of the throne of the glory and the authority of judgment is intertwined with the specific limitations on Azazel's associations. The second example, 1 Enoch 61:8. You can see the text above in here. And here, in this verse, the Lord of Spirits placed the elected one, the Son of Man, on the throne of glory. And the authority of the elected one is expanded to cover all celestial works compared to 1 Enoch 55:4. The third example, the 1 Enoch 62:2-3 and verse 5. This passage is crucial evidence for the interconnection between the motive of the throne of glory and judgmental authority. One of the notable points is that the sitting of the elected one, the Son of Man, on the throne of glory marks the beginning of his authority to exercise eschatological judgment. At this moment, all the kings, the mighty, the exalted, and those who possess the earth stand out to respect for the ones upon the throne, recognize the Son of Man as the truthful judges. As we consider the immediate context, the universal juridical role of the Son of Man, who will the judgment and will judge in the righteousness, destroy evil, and bring the pain of judgment upon the kings and mighty ones, originates from his seated status on the throne of glory. Thus, it is possible to conclude that being the true judge of the world is presented through the Son of Man sitting on the throne of glory, demonstrating that two factors, the Son of Man's status of seated on the throne and his exercising judgment, are closely incorporated. The fourth example, 1 Enoch 63:11. In 1 Enoch 63, completes the judgment scene depicted in the previous chapter and declares no mercy on kings and the mighty ones. Verse 1 Enoch 62:10 and 63:11 depicts the scene of the kings and the exalted beings expelled from the presence of the Son of Man with shame-filled, darkened faces. In addition, Work points out that the text form in the both 1 Enoch 62:9 and 63:11 are used to the context of sinners being driven out forever. Accordingly, Work concludes that the text form in the 63:11 Son of Man connotes authority over sinners and never-ending blessedness for the righteous. 1 Enoch 63:11 is the starting point of the second narrative of the 1 Enoch 63, and a comparison of 1 Enoch 63 with the Daniel 9 yields many fascinating and contrasting points. We can follow details, but we can move on to these highlighted sentences. In this context, the similitude exchange the subject of the plea from the Daniel to the mighty authorities, highlighting the unforgivable status of the latter and emphasizing the impossibility of their salvation. This suggests that the anarchic redaction of the Danielic tradition incorporates its own perspective, advocating for rightful vengeance without mercy on evil. This characteristic may well present the anarchic author's interest in the total annihilation of evil at the eschatological judgment. This line of thought is well incorporated into Pastor Enoch's emphasis on the judging role of the Son of Man. The fifth example, the 1 Enoch 69:27-29. Although its textual origin is sufficiently doubtful due to the good relational and evidences, this passage nevertheless contains many key characteristics of the concept of the Son of Man in the similitudes. The Son of Man is clearly described it as sitting upon the throne of his glory, and similar to previous cases, he is given authority for judgment over the wicked, leading to their destruction, which implies the vindication of the implied leader against their current oppressors. Compared to the Son of Man's honorific and nominal judgment in Daniel 7, the Son of Man in this verse has ultimate authority over all nations to destroy evil through the indisputable and powerful words. The concluding of the observation in the anarchic literature, the investigation in this subsection demonstrates that the role of the Son of Man is quite parallel to God's judging role at the eschaton. His image may have roots in East Danielic tradition and other Hebrew Bible traditions. However, the interest of the anarchic author is rather focused on the total destruction of evil and the evil deeds committed by the earthly kings. Third subsection, canonical gospels utilization of anarchic tradition. We directly move on to the highlighted one here. In comparison with the similitudes, the Synoptic Gospel's treatment of the anarchic tradition aligns with the anarchic redactor, but there are some notable changes. First, in all the canonical Gospels, the interrelated status of the Son of Man between the throne of glory and exercising eschatological judgmental authority seems more clearly divided than in First Enoch. Second, the role of the Son of Man in judgment shifts in its context. While it belongs to a similar apocalyptic background, the Son of Man's role is less symbolized compared to the anarchic Son of Man and is embodied more specifically in Jesus' earthly ministry. Accordingly, we need to categorize this into two groups, demonstrating the Son of Man's seated status on the throne of glory and his role as an eschatological judge in the canonical Gospels. So moving on to Son of Man, the glorious throne in the Gospels. As you can see, the text mainly deals with the Synoptic Gospels based on the Matthew's composition. Regarding this logion, Matthew diverges from Luke's treatment of Markan tradition. We can refer in here in Matthew 19:28, explaining why the Markan and Lucan logia are quite similar in each account. Thus, it seems that the anarchic Son of Man shared status with the throne by the Lord of the Spirit is transferred in Matthew as the Son of Man granting his throne to the others. Therefore, one can assume that Matthew's unique redaction here reflects his interest in combining Jewish apocalyptic elements with the Jesus tradition. Sorry for typing here. And Matthew 25:31-32 contains a unique Matthean logion with the synoptic tradition. Here, the most explicit language is used to be described the Son of Man sitting the throne of glory and his authority over all nations, dividing them into either the sheepfold or the goatfold. If the thesis that the Son of Man in Enoch's throne is in God's throne, and Matthew follows this tradition, is accepted, then it follows that Matthew 19:28 and 25:31, where Christ as Son of Man is said to sit, are probably to be understood as asserting that the Christ will sit on the divine throne when he comes at the eschatological judge. This judgmental result is an eternal separation into eternal reward or eternal condemnation, as already presented in the eschatological scene at the first Enoch 62:9-11 and 69:27. Matthew 26-64 closely mirrors the Markan depiction of the Son of Man's coming. However, it is notable that Luke deliberately omits the Markan phrase coming with the clouds of heaven and places this logion much later than in the other synoptics. Therefore, a simple observation reveals that the only explicit Markan saying of the apocalyptic Son of Man is fully retrieved in Matthew, while Luke only includes part of the Son of Man imagery. Thus, it is reasonable to state that Matthew's focus on the apocalyptic Son of Man is more concentrated than that of Luke. In conclusion, within the synoptic tradition, there is a slender stream of thoughts related to the anarchic Son of Man's sitting on the throne of glory, except for Matthew's special emphasis on this concept. A common picture, however, can be drawn from the synoptic treatment of the Son of Man's throne. It is embodied as Jesus' foretold prophecy rather than a mysterious vision or revelation from the heavenly being. The second, the John's Gospel's case is John 23 and 6:13-31. In John, there is no specific reference to the relation between the Son of Man and being seated to the throne of glory. However, the transformation of the concept of the glory is notably observed compared to the synoptic tradition. In John's Gospel, the coming hour of the Son of Man's glorification implies the post-coming suffering at the crucifixion. The cross is the beginning of the Son of Man's return to the Father, which will bring the consummation of his future judgment. In John 13:31, the Johannine Son of Man's own distinctiveness is revealed. The glory that will be consummated at the eschaton is realized here through a paradoxical sense of Jesus' immediate passion and death. Thus, the apocalyptic authority of the anarchic Son of Man is now transformed into the passion-inclusive and presently realized glory of the Son of Man in John. Furthermore, the glorification of the Son of Man is identified with God's glorification in John 13:31. By observing all these facts, it becomes clear that all the gospel writers, especially Johannine author, have been aware of such categorization and maximize the depiction of the suffering Son of Man by turning it into the paradoxical meaning of glory. The association of Johannine Son of Man with the glorifying death may well combine ideas expressed in the suffering and apocalyptic sayings of the synoptics. Now we can move on to the Son of Man being judged in the eschatological judgment in Gospels. Here, the Son of Man, then here is the Matthew 13:41. The Son of Man's authority to send angels as his vice regent clearly signifies his authority over celestial beings as the eschatological judge. The similar role of the Son of Man in the eschaton is also present in Matthew 16:27-28, where the Son of Man repays individuals for what they have done. However, Matthew's treatment of Markan redaction has a distinct feature compared to Luke's redaction of Mark. Matthew changed this specific behavior to more generalized and universal one, what he has done. This change can be viewed as Matthew's concern for more universalizing the scale of the Son of Man in Jesus' tradition and relating it more closely to the anarchic Son of Man. A similar apocalyptic atmosphere is seen in Matthew 24:30-31, where the Son of Man coming with his glory, the cloud is depicted as Mark and Luke. However, only Matthew expands this vision of the future by adding the peculiar phrase, "Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn," which can be seen also Zechariah 12. Moreover, the sending of the angels in verse 31 to the nations signifies the Son of Man's authority to exercise judgment and bring his people to the eschatological courtroom. Accordingly, Matthew again seems to emphasize his intention of close relating on the Son of Man in Jesus' tradition to that of the anarchic Son of Man, reminding us the earthly authority's petition before judgment in 1 Enoch 63. In addition, Luke 21:28, the phrase, "Your redemption is drawing near," mirrors the Lucan version of the synoptic apocalypse and recalls the phrase in the 1 Enoch 51 to verse 2. This similarity, convincingly evidenced by Gospel authors' utilization of anarchic tradition, may indicate an influence from the parables of Enoch on the synoptic tradition. The second part is the Lucan special material on the being an eschatological judgment, the Luke 21:36. Unlike the previous examples, Luke only here as the term Son of Man compared to the other parallel sayings in Mark and Matthew. Considering its Markan context, Luke clearly intends to highlight the presence of the Son of Man at the moment of eschatological judgment. The Markan saying portrays a sudden end at the eschaton, symbolizing it with the servant's preparation before the master's return, while the Lucan saying omits all the contextual cues but simply states the presence of the Son of Man. Considering Matthew's treatment of the Son of Man's universalized eschatological law, Luke's strategy here seems similar to the Matthew's. Based on this evidence, one can assume that Luke's perception of the Son of Man's juridical law on a universal scale is the same as Matthew's. The last example from the Johannine tradition, the John 5:27 and 9:35 and 39. The idea that the Son of Man has the authority to judge at the eschaton is inherent in the synoptic apocalyptic saying, and is also reflected in John 5:27. Here, the criterion for the judgment to come is based both on one's righteousness proven by one's deed and one's response to Jesus. As Benjamin Reynolds puts it, in John, Jesus' disciples do not have to wait for the future coming of the Son of Man as in synoptics, because Jesus is working as the apocalyptic figure in the present world. The Son of Man's ability to judge in the present is not a new concept, as he proclaims his authority to judge and give a life at the eschatological resurrection based on present actions and responses. This present apocalyptic characteristic is also demonstrated in John 9:35 and 39. From a Johannine perspective, as a logos dwells in the world, the Son of Man is a heavenly figure who has descended to the earth, and his appearance brings immediate eschatological judgment in the present. In this sense, the healing of the blind signifies that those who truly see and recognize him, confessing him as a figure to be worshipped, will be saved in the present moment. This could be the Johannine real-life eschatology, which views the present as a precursor to future judgment, brought by the presence of the apocalyptic Son of Man in the present. Unlike the eschatological setting suggested by the synoptics, the focus of this passage, Johannine Logia, is on present judgment, specifically the healing of the blind, which symbolizes the recovery of the sense for recognizing Jesus. Conclusion of this subsection. In the synoptic account of the title Son of Man refers to one destined to become the heavenly Messiah. He is exalted by God for transcendental status, as evidenced by his association with the commanding angels. Moreover, the instrumental saying in the synoptics highlights Jesus' consciousness of his authority in relation to the kingdom at the end. In conclusion, all the synoptic writers employ the apocalyptic features of the anarchic tradition to portray Jesus as one endowed by the Father with the power of royal law. John's Gospel, on the other hand, presents a distinct understanding of the Son of Man. The Johannine portrayal transformed the anarchic apocalyptic Son of Man into a figure whose glorification includes his suffering and crucifixion. In conclusion, the analysis
Dr. Kim, would you please wrap up your presentation in the next 2 minutes? Okay.
Oh, thanks for it. Okay, so we can skip for the latter parts, as you can see. The next section is the reason explaining phenomenon of this gospel's reduction of the anarchic tradition, which is entitled as messianic exegesis, but we can escape for these parts. Just let's move on to some sentences from here, and the conclusion that will be wrap up my presentation. Therefore, the early Christians' altered views on Scripture, resulting in a Christological development of exegesis, transformed their adaptation of the anarchic tradition. Define the genuine causal factor of this Christological messianic exegesis beyond the scope of this paper. However, a possible tentative suggestion is that the post-resurrection experience of Jesus' first followers could be a valid candidate. This study addresses the nuanced depiction of the Son of Man across the canonical Gospels and their connection to the anarchic traditions. The Synoptic Gospels, particularly Matthew, present the Son of Man as the both an eschatological judge and exalted figure seated on the throne of glory. The emphasis on the Son of Man's instrument and authority to judge reflects an effort to highlight just divine authority and fulfillment eschatological expectations, deliberately drawing from anarchic tradition. The Gospel of John reinterprets the Son of Man's glory and the judgment through the lens of Jesus' crucifixion, presenting a paradoxical glorification that begins with the suffering and culminates in exaltation. This study provides insight into the adaptation of evolution of early Christian thought and its scriptural interpretations. Consequently, this study highlights the complexity and intentionality of gospel writers' use of anarchic motif to shape their theological representations. In this sense, the anarchic Son of Man can be seen as a suitable mediatory figure for comparing Judaism and early Christianity. The anarchic Son of Man serves as a starting point for explaining the parting of the way between the Christianity and Judaism and elucidate how early Christianity, while maintaining continuity with early Judaism, developed its own distinctive character. Thanks for your listening. Thank you. That's the end of my
Thank you very much for your insightful presentation. Before we hear the response by Dr. Joseph Angel, I think it may be useful to hear your summary in Korean for Korean students and Korean scholars within 3 minutes. 우리가 조셉 엔젤 교수님의 논찬을 듣기 전에 김주원 박사님께서 한 3분 정도 어떤 내용이었는지 좀 한국어로 좀 요약해 주셔도 될까요?
네, 알겠습니다. 그러니까 이 주제는 정경복음서에 나타난 인자 전승 가운데서 특별히 이제 심판 때 앉은 보좌 인자, 그리고 그 심판의 보좌에서 심판을 행하는 그 인자의 전승이 어떻게 에녹 1서에 나와 있는 인자의 전승과 연결되어 있는가를 한번 비교해 보고요. 구체적으로 확인해 보고자 했던 작업이었습니다. 그리고 부분적으로는 이제 마태복음 혹은 요한복음 등 몇몇의 특정 복음서와 에녹 전승을 연결한 내용이 있었지만 전체적으로 이 두 가지 테마에 맞춰서 정경 복음서 전체를 비교한 연구가 없었다는 것에 착안해서 한번 그거에 대한 시험적인 관찰을 여기서 해보자고 했던 것인데, 그것에 대해서 이제 발견했던 주요 핵심 내용은 에녹 전승에서 묘사된 언어와 특별히 이제 공간 복음서에 있는 언어가 많이 유사하고, 그중에서 마태복음이 특별히 에녹 전승에 가깝게 일부러 차용했다고 보이는 것이 많이 보였다라는 것입니다. 그러나 이제 벤자민 레놀즈의 연구에서 본 것처럼 요한복음 안에서도 에녹적 인자 전승을 그냥 무시한 것이 아니라 요한적인 신학에 맞춰서 변형해서 드러냈기 때문에 모든 정경 복음서에서 에녹 전승에 대한 의도적인 차용이 있었고, 그것을 복음서 저자가 자신의 신학적인 기대에 맞추어서 윤색하고 보여주고자 했다. 근데 그 현상은 이면에 있던 내용은 무엇이냐라면은, 제가 내린 것은 다른 학자들이 예전에 설명을 해주고 했던 그 내용에 기초해서 메시아닉 엑제게시스라고 하는 기독론을 중심으로 한 성경을 해석을 새롭게 하는 과정, 그 가운데서 에녹적 인자를 이제 예수 그리스도, 예수와 동일시하는 그런 현상을 복음서 저자들이 일관되게 보여주는 것이 아니었는가. 그것에 대한 내용을, 그러니까 에녹 전승에 대한 변주를 일관되게 보여준 요소로서 영광의 보좌에 앉은 인자와 종말론적 심판자로서의 인자의 내용을 모든 정경 복음서, 요한복음과 공간 복음을 아울러서 발견할 수 있다라고 설명을 했습니다. 그래서 결론적으로 제 논문이 말하고자 하는 것은, 에녹 전승은 초기 기독교의 문화적, 신학적 배경과 제2성전교 유대교가 어떤 유사성과 연결성이 있는지를 보여주는 확고한 접촉점이 된다. 동시에 에녹 전승은 메시아적 주의 같은 초기독교의 독특한 해석이 어떻게 예수에 적용되어 시작할 수 있는지를 추적할 수 있는 시발점이 된다라는 것을 시사하는 것으로서 이 논문의 결론을 짓고자 합니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. 우리가 이어서 조셉 엔젤 교수님의 논평을 듣는 시간을 가지도록 하겠습니다. 한 10분 정도 논평하실 수 있을 것 같습니다. 조셉 엔젤 교수님께서는 예시바대 학교에서 성경과 유대 역사 교수로 계시고, 뉴욕 대학교에서 박사 학위를 받으셨습니다. 수많은 논문들과 그리고 어, 두 권의 책을 저술하셨고, 두 권의 책은 브릴 출판사에서 출간되었습니다. Now, we are privileged to have Dr. Joseph Angel as the respondent. Uh, Let me briefly introduce Dr. Joseph Angel. He is a professor of Bible and Jewish history at Yeshiva University. He earned his doctorate from New York University, and he has published numerous articles and also two books with Brill Academic Publisher. Dr. Joseph Angel, you have 10 minutes for your response. Would you please welcome Dr. Joseph Angel?
Thank you very much for the introduction. Can we unshare the screen?
Unshare.
Well, my screen is, you could leave this on the screen, but you could leave it on the screen if you like. I prefer it like this. Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's nice to be here. I'm glad to participate in this spirit of collaboration. And thank you, Dr. Kim, for your paper. Dr. Kim's stimulating and learned paper sets out to demonstrate that the gospel traditions concerning the Son of Man, which play a key role in the portrayal of Jesus, emerged from the milieu of Second Temple Judaism. More specifically, he claims that the canonical Gospels were directly influenced by traditions from the contemporary Jewish apocalyptic work known as the Similitudes or Parables of Enoch, which portrays a figure known as the Son of Man, who is also referred to variously as the Chosen One, the Righteous One, and the Anointed One. We're told that this mysterious figure sits on a divine throne of glory and executes God's eschatological judgment, punishing the evil deeds of earthly kings and bringing about the destruction of evil. In the Similitudes of Enoch, this figure combines the attributes of traditional figures from the Hebrew Bible, the one like a son of man in Daniel 7, Isaiah's suffering servant of the Lord, and the Davidic Messiah. It's important to note that as in the book of Daniel, in the Similitudes of Enoch, the term Son of Man is not yet a title or technical term. The Aramaic phrase bar enash, like the Hebrew equivalent ben Adam, literally meaning son of man, is simply a common Semitic way of referring to a human being. So when the book of Enoch mentions this figure, it may well have in mind a human being who is glorified in heaven. In fact, in 1 Enoch chapter 71, which was probably composed as an appendix to the similitudes, the Son of Man is identified as the patriarch Enoch himself. The heart of Dr. Kim's contribution lies in his detailed comparison of passages in the Gospels with those pertaining to the Son of Man in the book of Enoch. He finds strikingly close analogs in verses that portray the Son of Man sitting on the throne of glory, as in Matthew 19:28, and executing a universal end-time judgment, as in Matthew 16:27-28. He also points out some instances of similar language, as in Luke 21:28. The phrase, "Your redemption is drawing near," echoes 1 Enoch 51:2. The day on which they will be saved is drawing near. It seems that Dr. Kim views such parallels in a maximal light, as clear evidence of direct dependence on Enochic tradition. Needless to say, this issue has been quite controversial in scholarship. The possibility of a connection between the Gospel of Matthew, for example, and the similitudes of Enoch has long been recognized, but the debate has continued between those who see Matthew as drawing on Enoch, those who see the dependency as being in the opposite direction, namely that Enoch is here drawing on Matthew, and those who see the similarity as too limited to argue for any direct dependency. To his credit, Dr. Kim is not only concerned with mapping out similarities, he is well aware of the differences as well. For example, he notes that while the synoptics, and especially Matthew, tend to present the Son of Man tradition within a more traditional apocalyptic framework, the Gospel of John incorporates a realized eschatology that intertwines suffering with glorification. Moreover, he observes that even the earlier synoptic Gospels are not simply reproducing Enochic traditions about the Son of Man. Rather, they are adapting them according to, and I'm quoting Dr. Kim here, a common Christocentric interpretation, which is a unique innovation of early Christianity. Dr. Kim points out that these differences reflect a reinterpretation stemming from early followers' direct encounters with Jesus and subsequent reflections from post-resurrection experiences, wherein the identification of Jesus as the Son of Man was perceived as the fulfillment of prophecies spanning from the Hebrew Bible to Second Temple literature in early Christian exegesis. Now, by framing the issue in this way, Dr. Kim takes us well beyond the simplistic question of dependency on Enochic tradition and into the more difficult problem of delineating the complex combination of hermeneutical, historical, and rhetorical influences that contributed to the multifaceted depiction of Jesus that have been imprinted in the Gospels. In the remainder of my time, I'd like to express some reactions to Dr. Kim's paper from the perspective of a specialist in Second Temple Judaism. And I'll follow this by a related question about his paper. For centuries, a great wall has divided New Testament studies from Jewish studies, the canonical from the non-canonical, and the Jewish from the Christian. With the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the gradual incorporation of Old Testament pseudepigrapha and apocrypha into the study of ancient Judaism in the 20th century, this wall has begun to crumble. Dr. Kim's paper resonates within a relatively new trend in New Testament studies, characterized by the realization that Jesus and the Jesus movement must be understood not in opposition to, but rather within the context of the Judaism of first century Israel. Two key insights have encouraged this shift. First, based on the enormous new influx of comparative data, scholars now begin to grasp the diverse and pluriform nature of Judaism at the time of Jesus. Judaism can no longer be understood as a monolithic entity, and so it would be problematic to read the New Testament against the background of a single and unified Judaism. A particularly insidious and well-known form of this tendency is evident in the voluminous New Testament research that erroneously constructs a spiritually flattened and distorted version of Judaism as a foil to Jesus' teachings on the basis of anachronistic and selective misreading of rabbinic sources. The newly appreciated diversity of Second Temple Judaism has afforded New Testament scholars the opportunity to arrive at more complex and fine-grained understandings based on the comparative location of New Testament texts among different contemporary expressions of Judaism, allowing us to appreciate which features are shared with other particular forms and which are distinctive. Particularly important for this endeavor has been the intensive scholarly focus on Jewish apocalyptic literature, and especially the Book of Enoch since the 1970s. It's no longer enough to work exclusively with New Testament texts when trying to uncover the meaning of apocalyptic motifs like the Son of Man in the Gospels. Apocalyptic passages in the New Testament need to be interpreted within the wider context and as part of the large corpus of early Jewish apocalypses, and not in contrast to it. And Dr. Kim's paper illustrates this interpretive stance quite admirably. The second important insight concerns how scholars have problematized the existence of Christianity as a distinct religion in the 1st century CE. As scholars like Gertner and Runeson have pointed out, the term Christianismos was not used until the 2nd century by Ignatius, and even then only rarely. Moreover, the term Christianity is not used at all by the authors of the New Testament. While for convenience's sake, some scholars continue to use the term Christianity in connection with the New Testament, others are seeking less anachronistic ways of naming both the Jesus movement and the earliest texts it produced, signaling the nature of the texts as intertwined with Jewish life and thought rather than with their later non-Jewish reception. This fundamental insight has served as another powerful impetus to read the New Testament as a witness to a species within the genus Judaism. Returning to Dr. Kim's paper, he concludes with the following remark, and I quote, "The Enochic Son of Man can be seen as a suitable mediatory figure for comparing Judaism and early Christianity. The Enochic Son of Man serves as a starting point for explaining the parting of the ways between Christianity and Judaism, and elucidates how early Christianity, while maintaining continuity with early Judaism, developed its own distinctive character." My reaction to this is, yes, but what kind of Judaism do you mean? Scholars are now acutely aware of the heterogeneity of early Jewish apocalypses and the diverse views of the scribal circles behind them. Can the similitudes of Enoch really be taken as a fair representation of early Judaism? We must remember that there is much that is unique about this work, not just as part of the Book of 1 Enoch, but as part of ancient Jewish literature in general. For example, it was the only part of the Book of 1 Enoch that was not discovered among the ancient manuscripts of Qumran, an oddity that has led some scholars to argue for a date after the composition of the Gospels. Moreover, it is striking to note that only in the similitudes of Enoch and within Jesus' teachings do we find a focus on the Son of Man as the eschatological judge. No other known Jewish texts make this connection. Moreover, in the similitudes, we find that the Son of Man is related with the Messiah. Jesus is also presented as understanding a relation between the Son of Man and the Messiah. Such unique features have led some scholars to think that it must be the similitudes of Enoch that is dependent on the Gospels and not vice versa. But this seems unlikely, as there is nothing explicitly Christian about the work. And in fact, as I have already noted, the Son of Man is explicitly identified with the Jewish hero Enoch in the similitudes. Moreover, a growing consensus has emerged suggesting that the similitudes are datable to around the turn of the era, probably during the reign of King Herod the Great, before the composition of the Gospels. If we accept Dr. Kim's assertion that Jewish Enochic traditions concerning the Son of Man directly influence the Gospels, the question still remains: is the shared notion of the Son of Man on a throne of glory, executing eschatological judgment, really a widespread feature representative of first century Judaism? Or is this belief rather the product of a marginal sect? Or is it somewhere in between? Who wrote the similitudes? When and where? Unfortunately, it still can't be attributed to any known Jewish group or specific geographical location. All we can say is that it represents some Jewish group whose worldview and beliefs about the end of days were remarkably compatible with the views of the authors of the Gospels, who identified the one like a Son of Man with the risen and exalted Christ and awaited his imminent coming as universal judge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the insightful comments, Dr. Angel. Let me briefly summarize the comments of Dr. Angel in Korean. 엔젤 교수님께서 논평 주셨던 그 핵심 요소를 지금 채팅창 옆에 지금 한국어로 허정문 박사님께 띄워주셨습니다. 일단 그것을 보시면 되실 것 같고요. 엔젤 박사님께서 말씀해 주셨던 것이 먼저 이 논문의 기여가 복음서 에녹 1서 사이에 유사성뿐만 아니라 차이점을 잘 드러낸 그러한 논문이라고 평가를 해 주었습니다. 그리고 질문이 있는데 엔젤 교수님께서 해주신 질문이 뭐냐면 유대교가 굉장히 초기 유대교가 굉장히 다양했는데 에녹이 비후서에 나타난 그 유대교는 어떤 유대교이냐라는 어떤 그런 질문이 있었고, 왜냐하면 에녹 1서에서 묘사하고 있는 것들이 다른 초기 유대 문헌과 비교해서 굉장히 독특한 지점이 있기 때문에 이 에녹의 유대교 혹은 에녹의 비후서를 어떻게 평가할 수 있는지에 대해서 좀 말씀해 주셨습니다. 그래서 우리가 이것에 대해서 김주원 박사님께서 좀 답변을 해주시는 것을 듣도록 하겠습니다. Okay, so we will now have Dr. Kim respond to comments in English first and then in Korean.
First of all, I greatly appreciate Dr. Angel's insightful comments and his valuable feedbacks on this paper. His expertise and thoughtful suggestions will greatly benefit the enhancement of the future revision. Thanks again, Dr. Angel, for your time and reviewing this paper. At first, we have to acknowledge the possibility that the contemporary Judaism familiar to the early Christ follower was a minor form of Judaism. It still belonged to the milieu of Judaism at the time, but can be defined as one of the strands within the diverse spectrum of first century Judaism. In this sense, the Gospel writers may have deliberately chosen the Enochic Son of Man tradition because they saw a messianic connection between the Son of Man and the eschatological juridical Messiah. In addition, Jesus' teaching, which reflects his self-awareness of being the Son of Man, likely influenced the selection of the Gospel writers by linking the concept of Son of Man with the Messiah. Although I do not support the Galilean Q community hypothesis, the early transmission of Jesus' teaching to his followers in Galilee could have significantly influenced this type of development of gospel tradition. In this context, early Christians did not belong to mainstream Judaism, but possibly a minor Jewish group as suggested by Dr. Angel's assessment. In this sense, early Christians' belief and practice may resemble those of Qumran community, which also formed a sect within Judaism. Admittedly, viewing the Enochic Son of Man as the Messiah was not a representative perspective of universal Judaism at the time. However, as Dr. Angel pointed out, some minor Jewish groups may have held worldviews and beliefs about the end of days that were compatible with those of the Gospel authors. This compatibility could have facilitated the transition from the Son of Man to the Jesus in the gospel tradition. This also explains the possibility of a creative messianic exegesis that identified the Son of Man with the risen and exalted Christ as a universal eschatological judge. Yeah. I hope this would be a proper answer to your assessment. And thanks again for your reviewing this paper, and thanks to all the audiences. 그다음에 한국말로 잠깐만 설명을 해서 드리겠습니다. 오른쪽에 있던 두 가지 내용은 사실 하나로 연결되는 것 같습니다. 그 당시에 유대교를 어떤 범위로 정리할 수 있는 것인가, 그리고 복음서에 대한 인자 관련 내용에서 이것이 과연 일반성을 가지고 있는 것이냐라는 것을 설명할 수 있는 것인데, 그래서 요점을 모아서 하나로 제가 답변을 드렸습니다. 복음서 전승에서 반영될 수 있던 유대교 그룹의 믿음은 사실 유대교 안에서도 소수계였을 수 있을 것이다. 그 가능성을 우리는 인정을 해야 된다라는 것을 말씀드렸고, 닥터 엔젤 교수님께서 말씀해 주신 것처럼 유대교의 다양한 스펙트럼에서 유니버설하다고 퍼스트 에녹, 그러니까 첫 1에녹스의 믿음과 체계가 유대교를 대표한다고 볼 수 있는 것이 아니라 독특한 것이라고 볼 수 있기 때문에, 근데 독특한 그 점이 유독 복음서에서만 강하게 드러난다는 것은 여기서 갔었던 유대교의 신앙이 굉장히 유사하게 복음서의 믿음을 가졌던 유대교 신앙을 가졌던 사람들과 연결될 수 있는 고리가 되고, 그 부분에서 기독교적인 특성이 또 나올 수 있었지 않았나라는 것을 대표드렸습니다. 그거에 대한 내용은 이제 페이퍼에 설명드린 메시아닉 엑제게시스라는 표현으로 쓸 수 있었을 것이고, 그 부분에 대해서는 저는 이제 복음서 전승이 어떤 식으로 전승되는지 아직은 저도 탐구하는 관계에 있지만, 아마도 갈릴리에서 예수의 자의식의 명을 받아서 사람들이 그 예수의 가르침을 들었을 때 그것을 묵상하고 또 에녹적 인자와 예수의 연결성 발견했던 초기 기독교의 사람들이, 그러니까 유대교의 믿음을 가지고 있던 사람들이 그 독특한 신앙은 당시 유대교에 비교했을 때 마이너한 그룹이라고 할 수 있었지만, 그것이 어쨌든 복음서를 형성하는 가장 큰 역동성의 원인이 되었다, 이렇게 설명을 드렸습니다. 네, 여기까지 하겠습니다.
예, 감사합니다. 예, 김주원 박사님. Thank you, Dr. Kim and Dr. Angel. And I hope that meaningful discussions with Dr. Angel will continue after this session. So now, unfortunately, due to lack of time, we cannot have additional time for Q&A. But now, we are pleased to have Professor Jonathan Dauber of Yeshiva University here to deliver the welcoming remarks. 우리가 시간 관계상 더 Q&A 시간을 가지기 어려울 것 같습니다. 우리가 조나단 다우버 교수님께서 감사 인사를 전해주시기 위해서 이 자리에 오셨습니다. 우리가 조나단 다우버 교수님 환영했으면 좋겠습니다. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jonathan Dauber. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see everybody. It's great to be here. And thank you to Dr. Ha for organizing this, and to Dr. Kim and to Dr. Angel for their stimulating remarks. Let me just say it's remarkable how the themes of late antiquity continue into the Middle Ages that I study. And while we're on the topic, and Dr. Reinhold mentioned Dr. Ha's book, if you want to know a lot about how these themes resonate, ancient themes resonate in the Middle Ages, you can take a look at Dr. Ha's book. I just thought you should see what it's really a remarkable book. So highly recommended. As Dr. Kim mentioned, my name is Jonathan Dauber. I'm a professor of Jewish mysticism at the Bernard Revel Graduate School here at Yeshiva University. And I also direct our advanced certificate program in Jewish studies for Korean students. I know that Dr. Ha is going to tell you about the details of the program, so I just wanted to offer a very brief observation about a central goal of the program. This is the goal of bringing together Jewish and Christian students and scholars to study the classics of our traditions, and we've seen that happen here tonight. I mentioned that I'm a professor of Jewish mysticism. The most important work of Jewish mysticism is called the Zohar. It's best described as a mystical commentary on the Bible. And at the center of the Zohar is a fellowship of scholars, often referred to in scholarship as the Zoharic Fellowship. And this fellowship studies Torah together. In one passage, the Zohar comments on the first verse of Psalm 133. I'm going to translate this verse very literally. How good and how pleasant is it that brothers also live together? In most translations, the word also is left out. However, the Zohar seizes on this word when it explains the verse. And let me briefly quote the Zohar's remarks. The Zohar says, this verse refers to the Zoharic fellowship when they sit together and do not leave each other. At the beginning of their studies, they look like men going to war. Afterwards, they appear in love and in brotherhood. What does God say? How good and how pleasant is it that brothers also live together? The word also is intended to include the divine presence among them. According to the Zohar, the verse refers to the Zoharic fellowship studying Torah together. At times they argue with each other like men going to war, but their arguments come from a place of love, and ultimately they remain in a state of brotherhood and harmony. Moreover, the word also in the verse means that the divine presence is also with them. According to the Zohar, then, when the fellowship studies Torah together, God is with them. It's easy to see how the Zohar's remarks apply not only to the Zoharic fellowship, but also to any group that studies Torah together out of a sense of mutual respect and appreciation. They certainly apply to Jews and Christians coming together to discuss and study at this event tonight, or in the advanced certificate program at Yeshiva University. This is a type of study that creates love, mutual respect, and fellowship. And I'll just conclude by saying that in this very complicated world in which we live in today, full of so much conflict, such study is more crucial than ever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan Dauber. Thank you for your kind remarks. If possible, we would like to invite you to share your scholarship with Korean students and scholars in the future. Thank you again.
I'd be honored to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would like to summarize what Dr. Jonathan Dauber just delivered in Korean. 한국어로 조나단 다우번 교수님께서 말씀 주신 것을 좀 이렇게 요약해서 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 조나단 다우버 교수님께서는 먼저 버나드 레벨 유대교 대학원에서 유대 신비주의를 강의하시는 분입니다. 한국 학생을 위한 유대교 연구, 보급 인증 그리고 석사 프로그램을 운영하고 계시고 또한 이것에 대해서 간략하게 말씀을 주셨습니다. 이분께서 유대 신비주의 교수라고 소개를 해주셨는데 유대 신비주의에서 가장 중요한 작품이 조하르라고 말씀드렸습니다. 조하르의 한 구절에서 시편 133편의 한 구절을 말하고 있는데 형제들이 함께 거하는 것이 얼마나 아름다운지라고 말하고 있는 그 시편의 구절을 조하르가 해석을 하는데 그것이 토라를 공부하는 그 모습으로 조하르가 말하고 묘사하고 있다고 합니다. 공부를 시작할 때 전쟁터로 가는 사람들처럼 그렇게 공부하지만 그 후에 그들이 사랑과 형제를 나타낸다 라고 말합니다. 그래서 토라를 공부하는 것을 일종의 조하르적인 교제라고 말합니다. 전쟁터에 나가는 사람처럼 논쟁하지만 그 논쟁이 사랑에서 비롯되며 형제와 화합의 상태에 결국에 거하게 된다라는 것입니다. 그래서 이러한 조하르적인 교제 속에서 상호 존중과 감사 가운데서 토라를 공부하는 것에 대해서 이렇게 권유를 해 주셨습니다. Okay. Now, let's conclude our session for today. Thank you for your participation. I appreciate the insightful presentation, response, and discussions, and also welcome remarks. Let's thank all our speakers for their excellent contributions. I hope you enjoy the rest of the colloquium. Thank you for attending and have a great day. And also, I would like to introduce Mr. Yonghyung Lee, who will give an introduction to the certificate and master programs at 예시바 University. 우리가 그래서 이 세션을 마치고자 합니다. 우리 이용형 전도사님께서 계속해서 세션을 이어 나아가 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
네, 심포지엄을 마치며 이제 귀한 발표를 해주신 모든 발제자분들께 진심으로 감사를 드립니다. 끝으로 큰 박수로 감사를 표현해 주시기를 바랍니다. As we wrap up our symposium, we sincerely thank all our speakers for their valuable contributions. Let's show our appreciation with a big loud applause. 네, 참석해 주셔서 네, 감사드립니다. 네, 말씀을.
조셉 엔젤 교수님께서 지금 나가신 것 같습니다. 그죠? 인사를 좀 못 드린 것 같은데. 예. 말씀하시죠. 이용님. 저희 조셉 엔젤 교수님 좀 인사를 좀 드리고 갔으면 싶은데, 우리 조나단 다우브 교수님께서는 아마 남아 계실 것 같습니다. 예. 그러면 이어서 프로그램 소개에 대한 부분을 제 생각에는 뭐 브레이크 없이 바로